Dr. Smith, to the front, please. It's just me. No, I'm just kidding. That's it. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dr. Tasha Nelson, and I am with Equality Maricopa. I'm the Vice President of Equality Maricopa. Welcome to all of you that are viewing from various places around the valley. I'd like to welcome you to our presentation today with Miss Allie Snow. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're not familiar with this space, the restrooms are out the door down the hall to the right, and they'll be on your left-hand side. So welcome to our event today. Again, my name is Dr. Tasha Nelson. I work in the adult ed program, so you may see me but not see me because I am an in-person instructor senior. Before we begin, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, but more so my organization, Equality Maricopa, part of our district-wide employee affinity resource group. Equality Maricopa is a Maricopa County Community College District employee affinity resource group dedicated to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion within MCCCD. Through a variety of initiatives, EM actively supports the LGBTQIA+ employees and students within the district community. Equality Maricopa's activities include hosting educational workshops such as Pride of Maricopa Conference and the Rainbow Institute, which is coming this fall, organizing community events such as our drag ball, November 15th, so mark your calendars, and student and employee participation in our annual City of Phoenix Pride March in October. We also provide resources and support networks, and we're currently collaborating with community partners like 1 in 10, Southwest Center, and we do HIV/AIDS testing through Spectrum Medical, sponsored by a grant from the City of Phoenix. And we also advocate for policies that foster equality and respect at MCCCD. By collaborating with various stakeholders, the organization endeavors to ensure that everyone in the Maricopa community feels valued, respected, and empowered to succeed. Equality Maricopa is also a 3-time District DAC Award recipient and a nationally recognized recipient for our logo and marketing materials. That is a perfect time to clap. No, I'm just kidding. That is my personality. So before we introduce our speaker today, who's going to be guiding us through today's session, I first would like to introduce you to Dr. Kate Smith. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Kate Smith. Dr. Smith is a visionary leader and a steadfast advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or DEIB. President Smith's commitment to DEIB is evident in the college's innovative programs and policies designed to promote access, respect, and success for every member of the Rio Salado College community. Under her leadership, Rio Salado College has made significant strides in advancing DEIB initiatives, ensuring that all students, faculty, and staff feel valued and supported. Her unwavering support for the LGBTQIA+ community, as well as her dedication to fostering an inclusive culture for all faculty, staff, and students, has profoundly impacted the Rio Salado community. Her passion for creating an equitable educational experience is evident through her active participation in and support of various DEIB programs and policies. Dr. Smith's exceptional leadership and her dedication to inclusivity and equity serve as an inspiration to us all. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kate Smith.
That was such a kind introduction. Thank you so much. That was just really lovely. Thank you. And welcome to everybody who's here in person and everybody who is joining us online. As you heard, I am Kate Smith, and I have the great honor to work alongside all of these amazing people at Rio Salado College, serving in the president role. And I'm excited that we're here today, um, that we get to have this opportunity to come together both in person and virtually to celebrate Pride Month, recognize and celebrate. And we get to spend some time with Allie Snow, who I'll talk a little bit about in a second. But first, I want to say that we proudly join the Maricopa Community Colleges in creating spaces for hosting civil discussions, storytelling time, and celebrating every individual and the individuality of every person. And we get to do this all year long, and I want to highlight our DEIB council, who leads these discussions faithfully monthly. And we know that these don't happen without somebody doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So please join me wherever you are in thanking that council for all the work that they do. I really feel that I'm really proud that our events highlight what we have stated on our values page, that we value and honor everyone's unique contributions and perspectives. And thank you again to the Council for really creating time and spaces where we actualize and make sure we're staying true to our values. As an educational institution, we are committed to creating a space where we can come together to learn and to grow. And so I really appreciate all of you taking time to be here today, again, virtually or in person, for us to have that time to learn together. I also want to give a shout out to our library. I think we do this almost every event. I hope we do, because we have some amazing librarians at Rio who spend a lot of time and always curate materials for us. So you can certainly go there, check in with them if you want more details about Pride Month and about LGBTQ plus communities. So, but today our highlight today is getting some time with Allie Snow, who will be leading today's discussion about effective strategies that foster LGBTQ plus inclusion in higher education and beyond. Allie has served as one of our senior dual enrollment student services specialists. She has been an integral member of the Equality Maricopa and the fledgling women's networking group, and we really appreciate that. She is a fervent advocate for LGBTQ plus rights with more than 15 years of experience across education, social services, and holistic wellness. And then at the end of her presentation, which we're all looking forward to, Ellie will take questions and comments and really lead us in a discussion about how we can continue to create more supportive and more inclusive environments for all. So, with that, please join me in welcoming to the mic Allie Snow. Woo!
Well, okay. I was going to use the lapel, and then it started giving me a little bit of issues, and I decided, you know what? That is a sign. I'm just going to go with the microphone. Okay, first of all, I don't know if you guys all know what today is, but I absolutely love the symbolism of being asked to speak on June 26th. Happy Marriage Equality Day, everybody. Can we get a shout out? Woo! Thank you so much for coming. Those of you who have come in person and those of you who are attending virtually. I got a handful of people that said, I'm so sorry I can't make it in person. I'm traveling, I've taken time off, I have a meeting. I will be there online to support you. So I'm just super grateful for any and all support. All right. So, going off script a little bit, I'm very, very good at that. If you're not familiar what Marriage Equality Day is, that is okay. On June 26, 2015, same sex couples in the United States received the right to marry on a federal level. And I'm just so grateful for that right and for the progress. And the funny thing is, this speech was originally supposed to be June 12th. And then they said, wait,
We looked again at Dr. Smith's schedule. We need to do June 26th. And I said, perfect. Love the symbolism. So I'm just extra joyous today. You may notice if you see closely, I am wearing a pin that says queer joy. So can I get a round of applause for queer joy? And while we're on the subject, in the past, it used to be a slur to say queer. And just so everyone knows, queer is such a wonderful word to use and very inclusive, and it's no longer a slur, so please use it. Excellent. The slideshow works. While I'm giving a couple of shout outs, thank you so much to our tech team, to Frank and to Chris for making sure we were all set up with all of this stuff. So, greetings, Rio Salado students, staff, and faculty. Happy Pride Month. Dr. Tasha, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for serving as the Vice President of Equality Maricopa for however long you've been doing it. A long time, long time. Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for being here today. Thank you so much for being a beautiful ally to the community and letting that show. And also, thank you so much to Raina, who can't be here today. She's our fabulous new-ish DEIB director, and she did so much work behind the scenes before today to get this going. So I'm very grateful for her. Probably about 3 months ago or so, she asked me to give this speech, and it's been such an honor. And I truly have been thinking about it for 3 months and talking to many of the queer Rio Salado students, to staff, to faculty to kind of get some opinions on what is your experience since I'm only one person and doing a lot of DEIB research kind of all across the board, not just for the queer community, but for many different minority communities. It's so true. I created the title Standing Together, Creating an Inclusive Environment for the LGBTQ plus community because the whole point in being a human, last time I checked, was standing together. And the whole point in working in higher education is for us to all come together as one and do our very best to support each other and to support our students. So I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. So my speech today is going to focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging for queer people at Rio Salado, and a few small yet crucial ways that we can increase belonging for the queer community within and around the institution. Please note the rainbow sidewalk. They're very fun. For any of you who live around here locally, there is a rainbow sidewalk in what's considered the gay part of Phoenix in the Melrose district. It can be a fun place to go do a photo shoot. So there's an absolutely fabulous woman. Her name is Dr. Martha Beck. She's a Harvard educated sociologist. She is a prominent world famous life coach and a frequent New York Times bestselling author. I actually believe she's written 9 books. And she also happens to be in the queer community. And she said that there are 3 universal questions all people ask ourselves the most. We ask, am I safe? Am I loved? And what can I learn? So, whether or not we realize this consciously, these 3 questions significantly influence where do we attend college and where do we either establish or grow our career as educators or as administrators. Does that sound familiar to anybody here? Yes, I'm getting a whole lot of nods. So, these 3 factors contribute to an individual's perception of safety, of personal value, and of the ability to learn. And all of these 3 things are correlated with what we would call cultural conditioning. So you can see this quote from Dr. Victoria Wilson at Duke University. Cultural conditioning is a process through which we absorb and interpret the influences, norms, and messaging from our environment and translate them into what we believe to be acceptable. Okay, so there are 5 different factors that play into cultural conditioning that you can see up here, kind of statistically. All right, so looking at those 5 factors, I'm now going to tell you a little bit of a story about myself. When I was 13, that's when I started figuring out that I was pretty different than my peers. I absolutely could not understand why all of the girls at my junior high school and at the church I was raised in were so obsessed with boys. I did not get it. In fact, I was so excited every summer to go to an all girls camp for church because that meant that it was just going to be us and the boys wouldn't be there and we could just have fun and they wouldn't be so distracted, you know? So, in my family of origin and the religion I was raised in, even though I was raised in a wonderful family and I was very happy at the time with the religion I was raised in, the cultural conditioning, the messages let me know that being gay was considered morally wrong and actually even abhorrent. So at my junior high school, I was only aware of one other queer person, and at my high school, same. I graduated from high school in 2005. So, those of you who are about my demographic, I'll be 37 soon, can kind of maybe understand and relate to the fact that people just didn't come out nearly as much then, right? So, the two people that I knew that were out, one in junior high and one in high school, they were both being really bullied. So, they were not having a good experience. And because of my family's faith and because of the faith that I grew up in, the only thing that I understood from all of my cultural conditioning was that being gay was wrong, it was bad, and it was dangerous, right? So if you look at those five factors, 80% of my cultural conditioning told me that. And the only other factor is the region. And I did grow up in a pretty conservative part of Arizona. So you can imagine that 100% of my cultural conditioning was indicative that it was wrong, it was bad, it was abhorrent, and it was dangerous. In fact, in the religion that I grew up with, being gay was considered the very worst thing that you could possibly do, the very worst thing you could possibly be, except for killing somebody, truly. So, can you imagine that I probably developed a whole lot of what we might call internalized homophobia? If any of you feel like you can relate and feel safe, you're welcome to raise your hand if you've had that experience as well. Uh huh. So, we see that it is definitely not unique to me. I remember a whole lot of gay slurs that people made when I was in junior high, high school, college, before I decided to come out of the closet. My freshman roommate in college, I'm smiling because we're very good friends and she has since apologized when she learned. Her favorite phrase used to be flaming, homosexual, gay wad, queer. And that was real hard for me in 2005 as a closeted 18-year-old to hear on the regular basis. You can imagine that would be painful. I remember being in college and hearing about those people, or the gays only come out at night, or they're disgusting. Why waste time on them? And honestly, those things can cut really, really deep. When we talk about aggression or microaggression within diversity, education, inclusion, and belonging, we often talk about death by a thousand cuts. And it's there for a reason. And in 1995, there were some social scientists, researchers, and theorists who started discussing minority stress theory. And whether or not you feel it's a theory or a truth, for me, it's my truth. I've had a whole lot of stress as a minority. And unfortunately, this is not unique to me. I know that most people within the queer community, myself included, including staff members, faculty, and Rio Salado, have been victims to these experiences. Now, that is not victim energy, it's just the true definition of what it means to be a victim. Okay. So, because of all of my cultural conditioning, I chose to stay in the closet from age 13 to age 21. I didn't tell anyone. I was terrified. And what was I going to do? Was I going to use, dial up internet to Google my questions? Was I going to use AOL? I mean, how does that work, right? Then somebody might see my internet search. And besides, my older brother loved to hack into my email account and my messenger and pretend to be me. And, if you're on the computer, then somebody can't be on the phone. And it's this whole thing. You guys remember, those of you who are old enough, right? So I graduated from college in December of 2008. And a few weeks before I graduated from college, one of my high school best friends came to visit me for Thanksgiving. And I just could not keep my truth about being gay inside anymore. And so I decided to tell her. And you may wonder, well, you were in college, right? Like maybe you could have told somebody. By that time, I was having daily panic attacks, very severe, maybe 3 times a day, really significant depression, very bad generalized anxiety. I had to reduce my course load at school because it was too much. I had to stop working because it was way too overwhelming. By that time, I'd probably been experiencing pretty intense suicidal ideation for about 2 years. And it was really hard to live with and keep it all to myself. So when my friend came at Thanksgiving time and I was able to share with her, it was such a huge relief because she was one of my high school best friends and somebody that loved and cared for me deeply and was really there for me and didn't want anything to change for me except for my mental health. So, the reason that I stayed in the closet for so long, in addition to the cultural conditioning, was because the university that I attended had a rule. And if anyone so much as said they were gay, even if they weren't dating or in a romantic relationship, they would be kicked out. And so you can see why I was terrified because I didn't want to, lose the ability to get my higher education. I went to the same school my parents did, my grandparents did, and so on and so forth. And it was very kind of expected in my family of origin that that's where you go to school and also within my faith. So, knowing about my mental health and keeping those things inside for that long, how well do you think maybe I performed in school? Yeah, I can see a lot of people shaking their heads like, yeah, I can acknowledge that, right? Unfortunately, again, this is not a unique experience to me. According to the National Alliance for Mental Health, queer people are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with depression, major depression disorder, and also 4 times more likely to attempt suicide, not just to experience suicidal ideation. And so we know that when you're in a minority community, and particularly in the LGBTQ plus community, there are very likely significant mental health challenges taking place. Okay. At this point, I just wanted to share that while some of these things have continued to be a struggle with me, I have worked very, very diligently in the last 15 years since I graduated from colleges and started coming out and living my truth to undo the parts of cultural conditioning that were no longer serving me and to replace them with what we call authentic living. Okay. And so while there are still plenty of struggles, there's also so much, again with the pin, queer joy. So let's focus on that for a minute and authenticity and what it is and what it means. So, cultural conditioning is something that can affect anyone, okay? We're all human, and those 5 factors play into our perception of the world, how we choose to live, how we think, how we feel, our behaviors, right? So, whenever we fall into cultural conditioning, what we're really doing is we're hiding behind other people's expectations rather than living our truth, right? And so, it's really important to kind of look at our own lives on occasion and figure out, is this me? Is this my authenticity? Or, is this what my mom would expect? Even when we're adults, is this what my dad would expect? Is this what my peer group says that I have to do? Is this something going on at work or at school? Or is this how I truly want to live, how I want to feel, how I want to act, what I would like to believe? So then we wonder, we hear the term authenticity all the time these days within higher education and other places. So, what is it? It is the quality or state of being real or true. And then Dr. Marjorie Schumann, we live fully only to the extent that we embody authenticity and aliveness. Now, I know I've been turning around a couple of different times to look at the screen. I should have put everything here, but I keep going off the notes and off script. It's a thing. All right. Dr. Brene Brown is one of my absolute favorites. She is amazing. She has written 8 books, I believe, 6 of which I have read. One of them is co authored to really highlight the African American experience some more. But she is the forefront researcher on shame in all the United States. Now, shame is the belief or feeling that we are inherently wrong or inherently bad, right? And then you look at what Abraham Maslow would call self actualization, or what Dr. David Hawkins would call enlightenment. He has a lot of amazing books, kind of more in quantum physics and different scientific instruments indicative of how emotions measure on scales. So for reference, shame measures at 20 hertz. There's shame, the belief or feeling that something is wrong with us and that we're inherently bad. And then there's death, right? And then you go all the way up to 700 to 1,000 hertz, and that is enlightenment, or as Abraham Maslow would say, self-actualization. Okay, so this picture is about 4 months old or so. One of my best friends in Mesa, who's a major ally to me, took this photo shoot just for fun. She asked to. And does that look like it encapsulates queer joy to you? Yes, right? And so it's been so amazing to work at Rio Salado where I feel like I can be authentic, where I feel like I can work at this institution and not have to hide. Okay. So I started with Rio Salado on August 7th this last year in 2023. And on August 7th and every other day since I've been at Rio Salado College, I've been hardcore practicing and doing my best to live in authenticity. In fact, on my second day of work, I was horrified because I realized I left my coffee at home and that just doesn't work for me. And so I went in through a different door than normal to go buy coffee so I could, love myself and have a great day. And I ran into Dr. Smith and she said, "Oh my gosh, who are you?" Because it was my second day. And she spent 5 minutes talking to me outside in the August heat, just getting to know me and asking questions. And then I went inside to get my coffee, and Dr. Smith's assistant, Kevin, was there. And I was like, "Kevin, Dr. Smith is so great, so friendly. This is my second day." And she cared who I was. And she was like, "Oh, I'll have to let her know. And, thanks so much for that feedback," right? Okay. So it's just really important to do two things. We pay attention to the people and the surroundings and the environment around us, and then we make an intention to make an impact or some change, right? So probably Dr. Smith wasn't sitting there going, I better pay attention, and what is my intention here? But that was something that inherently came from her. And so that let me know, I have a pretty queer vibe. She's probably queer friendly. And she paid attention and set the intention to talk to me. And so that helped me feel a whole lot safer and more supported in this institution. And so it's really, really great if all of us can just think of those two things. What can we do to just pay a little bit more attention to ourselves and a little bit more attention to, our colleagues, to our superiors, to our students, to our staff, and what are a couple of intentions that we can make to have things be just a little bit better for everyone around us. Okay. So I've had some fun the last 2 or 3 months. I've talked to a few people that I knew that were queer at Rio Salado. And then I was like, okay, I can't go around asking people, are you gay? Are you lesbian? Are you bisexual? Are you transgender? Are you queer? Hey, maybe are you questioning, hey, are you an ally for the community? Probably not what I can do, right? Do you identify as non-binary, right? And there are so many different labels and ways that people identify in the queer community. And I wish that I had time to go over all of it. If I could, this would be a 3-hour speech, although I would never hold people captive longer than an hour. Nobody can listen longer than that. And, or make this a 4-part series. But hey, I don't want to be selfish. I'm just saying I could talk forever. I'm so passionate and so extroverted, so I could talk forever anyway. But the point is, it's been really fun because I've said, okay, who are a few queer people? Oh, wait, you know a few queer people. Oh, wait, you know a few queer people. And then it's been fun to just talk to a lot of different people to gather what has your experience been like at Rio Salado as a student, as a staff member, as a faculty member, and as an ally too. Allies are such an important part of the community. So I've made an effort to reach out to a lot of different people. Okay. And it's been really fun. And one of the most common reactions, honestly, has been, wait, there are other queer people at Rio Salado I didn't know. And that's a challenge of working at a primarily online university where most people are hybrid in different buildings, different schedules. And so I actually asked Karina to make an arrangement that anybody could stay here for another hour after the speech because the power of community is essential. It is absolutely essential. We need each other. We know that connection is the number one most important value for our health. Healthy connection is more healthy just for our wellness for any human at all. And it's healthier to have healthy connection than any other like wellness habit that we could have. And it's just so important. And so the power of connection can literally save lives. People need to be seen, they need to be heard, they need to be valued, they need to be loved, right? And so I'm so grateful that we can move over, no pressure at all, but to this next room over here for an hour if we want to, and people are welcome to talk or share or not, and if we all end up leaving at 2:15, it's no big deal. It's just an invitation. Um, right now, it's especially crucial that the LGBT community focus on connection, okay? Now, a lot of people might not know this within what we might call the heteronormative cisgender. So, people that identify basically as straight and they identify as the gender with the biological sex they were born with. So, that would be heteronormative cisgender. What you guys may or may not realize is that on June 6, 2023, the Human Rights Campaign, who's been working diligently for 4 decades, put out an emergency warning for our community. It's getting more and more dangerous with legislation, with gathering for pride events, with just living our truths out and about. And unfortunately, this year, on May the 15th, 2024, the FBI and Homeland Security put out a joint warning with a joint task force that there could potentially be some terrorist attacks in June at Pride events. And so there's a lot of fear energy in this community right now. And I refuse to live in fear energy for being queer, mostly because I did that for over half of my life and it made me very sick and very depressed and very anxious. So I refuse to do that ever again. However, I hold a lot of space and a lot of empathy for people who are afraid. I was so excited when Dr. Tasha and Equality Maricopa said, hey, we are going to get license plates for Equality Maricopa. Now we can all put them on our cars. So I posted in one of my little lesbian groups online that has 5,000 people. Guess what? We're going to get license plates. This is amazing. And some people said, woohoo. And some people said, oh, not on my car. My car will get bashed in. I don't, dress in a queer way. I would never put that on my car. We have to keep ourselves safe. So I choose to just kind of live a fully out gay vibe, not just for myself because I love myself, but as a message to people who are still in the closet, to young people, to some of my queer family members, many of my friends, or some of the youth and young adults that I have mentored over the years to help them start living their truth. I do it for them and I do it for myself. And I fully respect whatever anybody chooses to do because we're all on an individual path. Okay. It is absolutely vital if we are going to be healthy and successful at work or at school that we allow ourselves to take our whole selves to work, that we allow ourselves to take our whole self to school, to the different community. Because when we focus so much on hiding something about ourselves, we're taking so much energy hiding. How are we supposed to connect? How are we supposed to serve our students? How are we supposed to be successful with our homework? How are we supposed to get along well with our superiors and get that promotion, right? So thinking back on my college experience, I was so full of shame and I hated myself so much for who I was since I was taught for so long that I was wrong and bad. And so I don't want anybody ever again to feel as badly as I felt. There's an incredible woman who's since passed away, and her name was Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She wrote about the 5 stages of grief. She wrote about denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, not necessarily in that order of grief, right? And then this beautiful man, Dr. David Kessler, he went and talked to her on her deathbed and asked her more about grief when she was dying. And he came out with the 6th stage of grief. And the 6th stage of grief is finding meaning and purpose in your pain. So there's so many things that we can do to kind of be the person that we needed when we were younger, or to represent those who have not been able to raise their voices yet because they are not yet ready, or maybe they're a little bit afraid, or maybe still kind of working through some shame. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you just a little bit more about inclusive leadership and then a few things that we can do at Rio Salado to make sure we're being inclusive to all people. Alrighty. There are so many LGBTQIA P2S+ identities. Right now, that is kind of the most common acronym being used. Okay. So we would say lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex, asexual or an ally, pansexual, and then two-spirit. Okay, So I think I got it. Now, I can't go over what all of these things mean, but if you scan the little QR code at the end of this presentation, not only will you be able to do a survey for how today went for you, but also you'll be given some resource guides that Reina and Dr. Tasha and I have put together that have a lot more information about the LGBTQIAP2S plus experience, as well as what Dr. Smith said with going to the library and looking at some of those resources there, which are fabulous. Okay. I forgot to mention non-binary, very important. I didn't have that one up there. Non-binary is the experience where somebody does not identify within the gender binary. They either identify usually not as male, not as female, but just as a human, as non-binary, just somebody who loves and deserves love just like the rest of us. Oh, okay. So we know that inclusive leadership begins with listening. So you absolutely can't include people that you can't hear, right? It's just so important. Okay. So there is this, let's see, I talk too much, so I know I don't want to go over my time. So I'm going to skip over a couple of my things and keep going here. I want to talk to you about a beautiful example of inclusive leadership that wasn't a whole lot of time, that wasn't a huge effort, that wasn't, a whole banquet hall full of rainbows, although that would be amazing, right? It was simply one word. And the one word signaled to me safety and inclusion. And I want to talk about that for a minute, okay? So, as Dr. Smith mentioned, right, we had the inaugural Women's Networking Group event in March, and there were 3 panelists, and they were fantastic, okay? So I have talked to this woman and gotten her permission to share this. She said yes, and she was honored. So one of the panelists who really got my attention during that speech was Dr. Tiffany Hernandez. She did such a beautiful job on her speech, so eloquent. And I just sat there like a nerd with my journal from Equality Maricopa, making notes because that's what I do. Very low tech. So this is big for me, y'all. This is very big for me. Okay. So when Dr. Tiffany Hernandez was talking, she was talking about her students and her love of her students and just how supportive she is. And she used the word that let me know that she was a safe, inclusive person for me. She was talking about her students and she said, she, he, they. One word, right? And so I went up to her afterwards and I told her who I was. And I said, I really loved your speech. You're very eloquent. Thank you so much. I really loved listening to all 3 panelists. And I just wanted you to know I really appreciate that you were able to signal to me, whether or not you realize it consciously, that you're a safe, inclusive person for me to come introduce myself to without any fear. And she said, oh, really? What did I do? She had no idea. We had this beautiful conversation in the hall a couple weeks ago. And so I told her the one word that she used, I actually made her guess and she didn't guess, but I told her the one word that she used that let me know that she was safe. And she was like, wow, okay, that's a really big deal. Thank you so much for telling me that. And then she said, you know what? Your kind words about my speech today really built my confidence. And actually, I'm going to be honest, it made my whole week. Now, how would she and I have had that beautiful conversation if she hadn't signaled to me that she was a safe person for me to speak to? Again, examples like this are what inspired me to create the beginning portion of the title for this speech, Standing Together. And isn't that the point? And so she uplifted me, and I was able to lift her in return. Beautiful interaction. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot one more time, Dr. Smith. I was down in the lobby in October last semester in the tower on the first floor. I can't remember. I think it was Cookies and Conversation or something. And I was talking to a few colleagues in unofficial conversation, and we were kind of excited, like, ooh, the Maricopa Chancellor is going to give us one additional day for cultural celebration. This is amazing. And I think it was just after October 11th. I think it was just after National Coming Out Day. And I was like, dang, like I should use my day off every year on National Coming Out Day in October. How great is that? And Dr. Smith was like, wait. I thought Pride Month was in June. So again, she was paying attention, even in informal conversation. And I said, why, yes, it is in June, and October is LGBT History Month. And she was like, oh my gosh, tell me about that. Thank you so much. And she listened and she asked questions. So again, it's the attention and intention. You see how one word or 30-second interactions can really build community, right? It's really important. Now, there is absolutely so much LGBT history. I wish I had the time. Did any of you know that back in the 1930s, our code word for being LGBT was Friends of Dorothy? That was our code word underground. So there's this amazing coffee shop in Tempe that I love right off 60 or right off the 60 in rural. It's called Brick Road. And it's all based on the Friends of Dorothy concept. And every time you go there, they're blasting the Golden Girls on a big screen, and they have all kinds of merch, and it's a safe space, and they opened during the pandemic to make sure that queer people, especially queer youth, that couldn't go into maybe 21 and over places, had a safe space to go and a place to connect. And that's absolutely my favorite place. I love to go there and be alone, to read, to write, to look at all their merchandise, to watch Golden Girls on occasion. And then they even have a let's see, lesbian legendary board game night once a month. And so that's really fun. And they have all kinds of support groups and events for different demographics within the LGBT community. So I don't have time to go over all the history, but I do find it important to note a few things up here. In 1969, in June, we had the Stonewall riots. What was happening was the police was going into bars, and they were finding, queer people and arresting them and just making their life miserable. Oftentimes there were beatings involved with it, lots of physical brutality. So in 1969, the patrons were just so tired of it, and they had a 5-day riot. And that is where Pride was born. And I don't believe in violence. I don't condone it. I wish it wasn't necessary. However, sometimes rioting can really lead into better equality and opportunities for a lot of different minority groups. And that is what got us way more rights a long time later, but still very integral in our history, right? And then in 1995, LGBTQ plus was officially made October was officially made LGBT History Month, right? Okay, so fast forward. After a lot of painful legislation, um, difficult times in the United States, same sex marriage was legalized again on June 26, 2015, and the right to marry was so exciting. Arizona legalized it just a few months before that. I went to my first lesbian wedding in 2015, and I was like, oh my gosh, I now understand why all of my straight friends are so jealous at weddings. I never understood it before. And I was looking at the cutest of lesbian weddings, and they had it at sunset outside, and then it started to rain, and then a giant rainbow came out right when the ceremony started. And it was just so beautiful and touching. And I was like, wow, no wonder people are jealous. This is amazing. And I've since attended other queer weddings, and it's been so much fun. And I've been so happy for people to, if they choose to be able to get legally married and have those rights and protections. And if they don't choose to, that's their choice. All good. Okay. So it's just really important to note, though, that we did not have federal protection in the workplace as queer employees until 2020. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Somebody could have gotten married in 2015, but they might not have been able to wear their wedding ring to work. They might not have been able to say they had a spouse. They might not have been able to use pronouns. Maybe they couldn't put wedding pictures on their desk. Maybe they avoided happy hours and holiday parties because they didn't want to bring their partner because they might lose their job, or at the very least be a victim of aggression or get demoted, or even just experience microaggression. Microaggression is really painful. I've had a lot of those experiences at workplaces before, and then obviously straight up aggression with my undergraduate degree. And it's really hard. And the death by 1,000 cuts really does happen. So imagine if you just celebrated your wedding and you were so happy because you finally got the right to marry, and then you couldn't even go to work and talk about it. You absolutely couldn't take your whole self to work. How might you feel? I want you to take a minute and breathe into that and realize we've only had federal workplace protections as the LGBT community for 4 years. Okay, kind of moving a little bit forward, I have talked to a whole lot of people at Rio Salado to figure out what is your queer experience as a student or staff member? How do you feel? And if you're queer and I didn't get to talk to you, I'm so sorry. I've done my very best to get as much representation as possible. And there were a couple of testimonials that I wanted to highlight toward the end of my speech, and then share just a few things that we can do to be more inclusive. All right. So I really wanted to talk about the whole LGBT community. Honestly, though, it's really, really essential to know that there's a couple of groups in the LGBT community that are facing heightened discrimination in legislation right now and just kind of out in the world. And that would be those who are non binary, that don't, ascribe to being either male or female, and also those who are transgender. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that have gone really well at Rio and then a couple of suggestions for inclusion. Does this come off? Maybe. Slide. Haha, there we go. Maybe I should have done this a long time ago. Well, you live and you learn. Okay. So Rio has generally been welcoming to members of the queer community, particularly in the classic lesbian, gay, and bisexual realm. And overall, that was the word that I got from people at Rio Salado. There were a few people who talked a bit about microaggression or just more representation or some community. Overall, the messaging was, for this group, things felt pretty okay. Another testimonial. I feel that the environment of Rio Salado and the whole move toward inclusivity has really improved the overall atmosphere of belonging. I would like to say that one of the greatest things that Rio has developed is the preferred name option in HCM, being able to change what shows up all over the organization. And so much credit to Equality Maricopa and all of their efforts for that, as well as having 9 out of 10 all gender restrooms at the community colleges, 9 out of 10. Huge work there and huge progress with Rio Salado. Okay, so ways to increase belonging. I would love to see Rio Salado College spearhead the implementation of gender minority centered movements, such as making a gender minority network or club for employees and students, hosting celebrations for those who do not fall within the gender binary of female or male. I am worried that when my graduation comes, they won't say my preferred name, but my legal name, as that happened with a friend of mine. Now, the name that somebody is born with when they're transgender, when they no longer go by that name, is considered their dead name. And it can be really traumatizing to hear that name just immediately. And honestly, there's a lot of social science research indicative that if you call somebody by the pronoun that they say that they identify as, honestly, it may save their life or hardcore improve the quality of their life. It's absolutely essential. Every time a parent of mine reaches out and says, "What do I do? My child is non-binary, my child is transgender, how do I not mess this up?" I say, call them by whatever pronoun they say they are, and that could potentially save their life, and it's true. Social science research is indicative of how important it is for higher education students to see others who look like them succeed. It's really true. So as our students start to see more staff and professors and other students visibly living their truth and being not only accepted but supported and cheered, they're going to be able to be who they are, and we're going to see significant rises in their academic success, their performance, and their vitality. Okay, so there's just a few quick ways to promote inclusivity. The first one is listen to understand. Active listening, right? Because if we listen to respond, we're not really listening. So listening to understand. Introducing ourselves with our pronouns. Now, a lot of people call me Allie. My inner circle calls me Al. So I'm going to walk up and I'm going to be like, "Hi, I'm Al, she, her." And they're going to be like, "Awesome." And so then they know right away, rather than to assume pronouns, they can use the pronouns I said, and then we can ask somebody their pronouns rather than assuming their gender. It can be really difficult, right? Let's say somebody identifies as non-binary or transgender and you don't know it. Maybe you walk into the room and you say, "Hi, ladies, how you doing today?" Oh, and they might be full of shame or guilt or anger. They might feel really bad, and then they might not be able to listen to what's being said at the meeting because they're going to be so distracted with pain or the feelings of being abandoned or rejected or left out. So it really does make a big difference. We want to use inclusive language. I'm not from the South, and I've been calling y'all for a reason. Also, folks is a great way. I just prefer to be addressed as, "Hi, brilliant human." And if we all just did that with each other, we'd be safe, right? All right. We can add a safe place sticker or wear a pin like this one to our virtual classroom or our physical workspace. There are so many websites you can Google that will send you safe space stuff. For free, or you can get something on Amazon or in any other website, Etsy, for just a couple of dollars. You can take the ACUE course through Rio. I completed it in April and I loved it. I think they did a great job with it. And last, you can ask Dr. Tasha how to join Equality Maricopa because we need allies. We need you so bad. Okay, so I just wanted to give a shout out to a couple of allies. Um, I did ask a few allies at Rio Salado, hey, what do you think would benefit people around here to hear, especially if they might be cisgender or heteronormative or less familiar with this community? And they were so responsive and helpful. And a few of them emailed me and said, I'm so sorry I can't be there today. I am an ally. And it was, it's just so wonderful. We need allies always and forever. And I just want to put one more thing out there. I was doing a lot of DEIB's research, and I can just tell you that only 1.8% of faculty are all the way out of their school because they're so worried they're going to lose tenure. So even though it's 2024 and we've made progress, there's still so much room to go and so much work that needs to be done for our faculty, for our staff, and for our students. In 2022, about 7% of the United States identified as queer if they were a millennial like myself and above. And in 2022, 1 in 5 or 20% of Gen Z identified as queer. So if we're going to continue to be a successful, supportive institution at Rio Salado College, we're going to have to continue to learn about what it means to be queer. There's just a higher and higher percentage of all the time of people who are finding the courage and authenticity to come out. And I want them to feel so safe and loved and included as a student, a staff member, a faculty member at Rio Salado College, the way that I have by Dr. Smith and so many others here. Thank you so, so much for coming today. Happy Pride Month. Happy Marriage Equality Day.